Well, hello there,
Hello.
friends, lovers. I'm needing some serenity. I'm needing some calm. A little bit of a rush to get the show going on. In fact, the reason why you see me dressed as the man in black, no, not from the Princess Bride, but from my usual flamenco attire, is because we had flamenco dress rehearsal today.
Yes, we did. So nice.
Those of you who are familiar with Amy's flamenco exploits will know that she has flamenco practice every Sunday morning, bright and early, so it never interferes with the show. And recently I have joined Amy in flamenco, playing the cajon, the percussion, the box drum. But we had dress rehearsal today, and that was later than usual, so...
Yes. But it worked out, and we have some kinks to resolve, but
Now-
and things, strange things to make happen. But it'll happen. It'll be good.
So, if you are in Southeast Michigan later this month, was it last Saturday of the month? I'll look it up. We'll post it online. But if you're going to be in Southeast Michigan, you should come. Check us out. I'm just bringing the chat up because, as I say, running a little bit late. Things are a little bit hectic. But part of the reason for that is because of my usual show prep pages and pages of notes to have a good time with you all this afternoon. I've got to have the chat up here because that's half the fun of the, maybe more than half of the fun of the show, interacting with you all. And also, making sure things are working, that we're actually online. We had some snafus a few weeks back. So, no, things are looking good. Good. I see some of my favorite people in the chat. I see Greg Lewis in the chat. Greg, I got to give you a big shout out.
Yes.
Thank you for being at Great Lakes Subjectivists at Glow last night. The king cake was epic. Those of you who know anything about New Orleans know what a king cake is. But have you ever had one homemade? And yes, there were the little babies involved. And Greg was classy. He didn't bake them into the cake. No,
Yeah,
but they
he actually put them on on a pedestal, and he put a little Mardi Gras mask on the baby.
Yes, the babies were available because you
So
don't have good
cute.
luck without the baby, right?
Just adorable. Thank you, Greg. Thank you for all your support. That was very generous.
Well, yes, you're very, very generous support. Very much appreciated. Folks, today is, I should jump in. We're running late, so let me jump right in. Today is Sunday, April 13th, 2025. The 103rd day of the year. 103 in, 365 days in a year. That means you have 262 left to make this your best year yet. We're going to do a little bit related to that today, but we're also going to make sure that the parts that aren't your best year yet aren't getting you down too much, too. A lot to talk about, so I'll go real quick. Christmas is in 256 days. Halloween is in 201 days. Summer is in 68 days.
Although we celebrated Halloween yesterday.
We did celebrate Halloween yesterday. If you follow us on the socials, on Facebook, take a look at the cake.
Yes.
For Amy's birthday, Kayla's birthday. It should have been Greg's birthday, although we only just found out he's also a birthday boy this month.
Yes.
Epic cake. Amy said to me, Robert, I want a Halloween cake for my birthday. And I'm like, I don't think I can pull that one off.
And I tried looking it up as rules. We had to pre-order it, and it would be kind of lame. It would be one of those printed sheet things.
It can be done, but no. Instead, I brought home a big chocolate sheet cake, and I brought home tubes and tubes of frosting, and Amy and Kayla made this amazing Halloween birthday cake.
Happy Boo.
Happy Boo.
It was wonderful.
So yes, Halloween in 201 days, summer in 68 days. But the reason why I really want to do the countdowns this time around is because I've got a new add-on to the countdown list. Those of you who are in the colonies, the United States of America, or back on the island, back in Mother England, 447 days. 447 days until America's Semiquincentennial. Now, I am just old enough that I can vaguely remember the 200th anniversary of the United States of America, 1976. And that is so related to something that happened on this date. But yeah, they've got more than one name for it. There's the Bisesquicentennial. Some are just calling it the quarter millennium. For the United States of America, 250 years. This year, we will be in Boston celebrating on Independence Day, July 4th, 2025. But yeah, we're ready to count down to July 4th, 2026. Why? Why, Robert, would you start that 447 days ahead of time? Well, we'll absolutely get to that when we talk about on this date. The first on this date is 1870. 1870 is the day that the Met was officially incorporated in New York City. That's right, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which, Amy, is a museum we've never been to, have we?
I don't know. If we
think
did,
so.
we don't remember it.
We have not been to the Met, so we got to go. I got to celebrate that today,
Yeah.
April 13th, 1870, because we've never been, and we've got to know. What I want to know from you in the chat is, have you ever been to the Met? The Met Gala these days ends up being a big... My conservative friends, you'll notice I say that in the third person there. I don't usually put myself in with conservatives or liberals, but my conservative friends are very critical of the Met, and especially the Met Gala, the annual gala, where everybody dresses up in super, like, $30,000 dresses and talks about the plight of the poor. So you can see why it's kind of a thing, but I want to go. It is one of the great museums of art in the United States. And,
yeah, there are a lot of wonderful things there, a lot of beautiful sculptures and very beautiful paintings that are representative and are apt to just really represent just the beauty of reality.
And I love the fact that they've been there that long, 145 years today.
Yes.
Next up, April 13th, this date, 1970, what happens? An oxygen tank explodes on Apollo 13. I shouldn't giggle, but happily, that story did have a happy ending. The guys did not make it to the moon. They didn't get to walk on the moon, which some people still think nobody's ever done. But they were able to turn around and land safely on Earth, which is, it's a great story, and it's a great movie, if you like Tom Hanks. Apollo 13. What's interesting about that to me, and should be interesting about that to you, is Apollo 12. The preceding flight, Apollo 12, 1969, the sixth crewed flight in the United States Apollo program and the second to land on the moon. And in a way, it's kind of sad because most people don't remember Charles Pete Conrad and lunar module pilot Alan L. Bean. You know, we just don't remember that. We think of Neil Armstrong, we think of Buzz Aldrin, the first two guys to walk on the moon. The second two guys to walk on the moon should have got their props too. But what's interesting, again, to me, is for you people, if anybody out there really thinks, well, it was all a hoax, it was all staged, it was all special effects. I love it when they show the special effects that were available at that time and make it obvious how silly that is. But if you believe any of those unusual conspiracy theories, study the Apollo program. And again, the interviews and the information, the photographs, all of the stuff, not from Apollo 11, that first one that supposedly was a hoax, but all the ones that came after that as well, including Apollo 13, which would have gone to the moon without that oxygen tank exploding on this day in 1970. Now I got to get to the birthdays.
All right.
I'm going to skip one. I'm going to skip the oldest one for a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to jump right to Christopher Hitchens, because Christopher Hitchens, well, we lost him in 2011, but he was born on this date in 1949, and I heartily recommend everything he's ever done, even the stuff that I disagree with, of which there's relatively little. But I have read, well, of course I've read God Is Not Great, and also Mortality, his book, his posthumously published book about his own passing. And that one will wake you up. That one will remind you, memento mori. Remember, we all have a finite amount of time on earth, but it is written so eloquently, so graciously, and with so many insights that I heartily recommend that book to you. And we honor Christopher Hitchens on this day, his birthday, born in 1949. It's also the day Garry Kasparov was born. He is the great chess champion, the Russian chess champion, who is still with us, 62 years old. Besides being a Russian, well, not Russian, but being a chess grandmaster, and we can admire his prowess on the chessboard, he has been an outspoken Russian in favor of Ukraine. Mm-hmm. He has been downright heroic in speaking out against his mother country. Well, now he lives in New York City, so Props for that. He's also got Croatian citizenship. He keeps a home in Croatia as well. But yeah, Garry Kasparov is 62 years old today. Two more birthdays. It's Al Green's birthday, so let's stay together. Yeah, Al Green, the Reverend Al Green. He's one of those guys who had a soul career, R&B career, and decided to become a reverend afterward. But he's still out there. He has performed recently, and he is 79 years old today. And then finally, the final birthday for today, as I'm sure most of you know already, it is Thomas Jefferson's birthday.
Yay!
Thomas Jefferson turns, how old is he today? No, he lived to be 83. Thomas Jefferson, the more you read about him, the more you think he wasn't even perhaps our greatest president, or even the greatest thinker, the greatest founding father, being the primary author in a group of 5 men, but the primary author of the Declaration of Independence. No, just about everything about this man's life is admirable and extraordinary. Third president of the United States, primary author of the Declaration of Independence, the nation's first Secretary of State under George Washington, and then the nation's second vice president under John Adams. But you look into his accomplishments even before then, and he's kind of like Benjamin Franklin in that he was, Ayn Rand describes pride as moral ambition, which she got from Aristotle. And these are men who are like that. They figured out what is the very best I can be, the very best I can do with my life, with my time on earth. And it wasn't just going out and working hard and being industrious, but accumulating wisdom. Extraordinary, extraordinary, extraordinary. And the reason why I bring up the quarter millennium of the United States next year, July 4th, 2026, is precisely that Thomas Jefferson was responsible for that declaration that we celebrate on July 4th. Mm-hmm. He was the primary writer in the group. And as some of you know, he actually passed away on July 4th in 1826. So there will be a special anniversary in 2026 there too. 200 years since the passing of Thomas Jefferson. And this is a great day to celebrate Jefferson because last night at Great Lakes Objectivists, we discussed Ayn Rand's essay, The Metaphysical versus the Man-Made. It's
an excellent essay.
And she starts off the essay by observing the Serenity prayer. God grant me the
serenity.
The serenity to
accept things I cannot change.
Yes, to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, it was actually mentioned that courage to change things.
Yes,
I can.
Yeah, actually, I've got a link to an article on that because the author of the Serenity Prayer actually had several different versions over the course of his lifetime, and all of them are good. And Ayn Rand used that to launch her discussion of the metaphysical versus the man-made. That you accept facts of reality, metaphysical facts, things that are just out there, because they weren't open to choice. They weren't something that somebody decided to do or decided to create or decided to make happen.
Right.
You do judge the things that people have decided to do, the man-made, the chosen. Mm-hmm. And I think when you read that essay, and I imagine a lot of you have, that lesson stands out. That one's pretty obvious. You don't, old man yells at cloud. You don't argue with the weather. You don't argue with earthquakes. You get in your car and you go someplace safe. But you do argue with people who could have done otherwise. And in some cases, you actually morally condemn them. But either way, you talk people out of bad decisions. Ayn Rand also makes another point as you get into the essay, though, mm-hmm. that although the man-made could have been different and does need to be judged for that reason, once those decisions have been made and those actions have been taken, they are now facts. and she describes them as man-made facts. They're not metaphysical, but they are now facts, and you need to act accordingly. In fact, that's part of judgment. That's part of integrity, is after you make that judgment to then act in accordance with the fact that that is now the way it is. And I love that she takes it to that next step because, again, she opens with the Serenity prayer. And on the Facebooks, on the social media, the social networks, Keith, the gold advocate, Keith Weiner of Monetary Metals. Check their website out if you're interested in investing in gold and receiving interest in gold rather than dollars or digital information. He asks the question, are we living in good times?
Yes. Yes, we are living in very good times.
Yeah, that's kind of a strange question to ask. Because, well, depends on what your priorities are. Depends on which of the good things that are happening now are important to you and which of the bad things that are happening to you now are things you can handle, you can deal with, you can get over. Mm-hmm. If I spent all of my time, as I know some people who do, with Fox News on my television playing in the background of everything else that I do, I could easily see somebody saying, oh my God, these are the worst of times. Things have never been worse. We have never seen the kind of stuff that we're seeing now. And that's true. We have never seen the kind of stuff that we're seeing now. But I'm just old enough, having been somebody who was around in 1776 for America's bicentennial, to have seen that very situation of, oh my God, this is unprecedented.
Did you mean 1976?
What did I say?
1776?
Yeah, I wasn't alive despite appearances, I was not alive in 1776.
At least that's what I heard.
You're probably right. Sadly, I'll listen to the playback because I'm one of those people who does actually listen to his own stuff.
Yeah.
And find out that you were right and I was wrong. But although I don't have a lot of memories of 1776 because I was just a wee thing at the time, I was coming into my own, early teen years. Richard Nixon was the president just before that, before he resigned, before, of course, he would have gotten impeached and voted out of office. But Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick Nixon, I guess Trump wasn't the first person to start using those kind of nicknames and having them stick. Tricky Dick Nixon was not the first corrupt president. And he was not the worst of what was going on in the 1970s. I mean, we had the energy crisis in the 1970s. We had the oil embargoes. We had Middle East crisis. We had
the hostages.
Hostage crisis in 79 and 80. And you can look up incredible disasters that happened in the 70s, but I don't know. We mostly remember peace and love and really, really big collars on dress shirts.
And the really wide ties, and everything was like this olive green color and brown and a rust orange.
It was actually very colorful at the time. I think the problem is old photographs don't hold up that well.
It was very strange.
The colors were kind of garish, because you're right, it was olive, and the kind of orange that we used was this orange you had never seen before.
Right.
There was a lot of things you'd never seen before, and that was interesting at the time.
Yeah.
Kind of like a lot of music in the 80s. We would make songs with synthesizers just because nobody had ever heard those sounds before, and it'd be like, oh, that's so cool. And nowadays they sound a little dated, but disasters galore in the 70s. We were coming out of the 60s, the hippy-dippy generation, the progressives. We had real progressives back then. We had people rewriting philosophy, the philosophy of the world. John Rawls is redefining justice and causing such disasters that we had, and some of you will be old enough to remember this, we had something called the swing to the right. In fact, Todd Rundgren and his band Utopia were so disturbed about the swing to the right,
right.
that he actually wrote a song called Swing to the Right. denouncing that, Reagan taking over and the moral majority taking over, and disasters galore.
Yeah.
It's funny because when I think of George Herbert Walker Bush, HW, I think of that as like the disaster of impotence. America becomes impotent because he was bad. He was a bad president. He, read my lips, no new taxes, and I found that I had to discard free markets in order to save free markets. And
Wait. That was a son during the 2008, I believe.
Well, I thought that was the line that HW used when he betrayed his no new taxes promise.
Oh, okay. All right. I'd have to look that up. But yeah, read my lips,
no new taxes. I mean, that's what got Bill Clinton elected. If not for that soundbite, I think HW might have been able to stay in office. But then maybe we would never have seen Newt Gingrich and the Republican Revolution of 1994, which resulted in the first decade of balanced budgets. I shouldn't say the first. The last decade of the last time we had balanced budgets, under Bill Clinton. Well, under Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich, the happy couple who gave us that great decade.
Yeah, Bill Clinton, wasn't he a Republican?
Well,
by today's
compared
standards,
to what we have now,
he is.
At the same time, if you listen to conservative talk radio, especially the Rush Limbaugh type stuff, you would have thought Bill Clinton turned this country into Cuba, a socialist utopia. Well, he tried in a couple of ways. He did send Hillary out to try to put Hillary care into place. Before we had Obamacare, we had attempts to have some version of more. You can't say socialized medicine because medicine was already heavily regulated, and under Obamacare it just became more regulated. It's not like we went from free to socialized medicine, and no, we're not like Canada, we're not like England. We're in some ways worse, but in many ways better. Jumping forward to Obama, since I mentioned him, Obama was unprecedented. We talk about unprecedented. Man, we live in the worst times ever. This is unprecedented. You've never seen anything like this. You're right. You've never seen anything like this. But you never saw anything like under Obama. Hell, back then we had Tea Party rallies. We had marches and protests. And we're standing out in the streets with old-style picket signs. And because you ain't never seen anything like Obama. Now, I don't mean to write that off. Enormous damage was done. And Obamacare may not have been the worst of it, and a lot of other stuff that happened too. But we survived that too. And damage was done. That combination, we survived it, but a lot of damage was done. That one's hard to deal with. And when someone like, very intelligent like Keith Weiner says, "Are you really living in good times?" Because his answer, well, he points out the crushing burden of especially an economic disaster, what's being done to the economy, and not just under Trump's tariffs, but more broadly. It's very easy to think, well, since we've never seen times like these, and things are really, really, really bad, that combination, we've never seen it look like this, and things are really bad, must mean it's never been this bad. But those two don't go together. That does not equate. And why do I mention them? Am I like trying to bring Pollyanna, trying to be optimistic, man? Don't worry so much. No. My point is to be realistic, to recognize what is metaphysical about this, what is man-made about this, and what you can change and what you can't change. And how much action you can take, and action that is not going to do you any good. And that's why I love the Serenity prayer. But I especially love Ayn Rand's essay, The Metaphysical versus the Man-Made.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I need to say that, it was George W. Bush
Who said,
I've abandoned free market principles
to save the free market system. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was 2007?
2008.
2008.
Yeah.
The last economic downturn we had.
Yeah, soon.
I thought the last economic downturn we had was last week.
Right.
Under the Trumpster.
Yeah, just little tiny. We have the tiniest recessions where that makes us great. So yeah, we were trying to do our best Donald Trump impersonations last night at Great Lakes Objectivist, and I don't know.
Yeah.
All we could do is try to make our hands look really tiny and do this kind of. I don't know.
You know,
if you can't see me, I'm horizontally moving my hands away from each other and then back towards each other again.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so can I get into the essay?
Yes, please.
So we were actually talking about Robert's rule of 97-3. So 97% pursue your values, focus on your own life, focus on what you can change, focus on your loved ones, focus on the things that you can do every day to make yourself happy, and then 3% of the time you can fight, you can complain, you can write a letter, you can, whatever it is. We may have to up that percentage or recalibrate that nowadays, but going through the metaphysical versus the man-made, God, what a great essay. You need to just stop what you're doing after you listen to us and go to you can go to the courses.aynrand.org, and you can find that the metaphysical versus the man-made essay there. So I went ahead and I basically pulled out some quotes. And again, she's talking about the metaphysical being, you can't walk through walls. You cannot, fly during a tornado, fly an airplane during you have to respect the rules of reality. The nature to be okay. Tell me again what that is. Nature to be commanded must be obeyed. Thank you. And
that brings home the bacon.
Yeah, and the idea of the man-made, that there is a metaphysical component of the limitations, say for instance, and the nature of your consciousness. So, all things, being a healthy human being, you're going to have the ability to make choices. You've got volition, you have the faculty of reason, you can actually figure things out. You can engage with reality and try to figure out what to do if you want to achieve a goal. So there are there's a nature to your consciousness. What is then man-made? Say for instance, it's the old line of you can't fight City Hall, when in fact you can fight City Hall, because City Hall is made up of individuals who are making policy decisions that may actually be destructive to your life. And you can go out and petition and rally and whatever you need to do and attend really boring meetings and speak your mind. And that's something that we're all going to have to gear up to do, I think, this year and for the next 3 years after that.
It's one of the frustrating things in fighting the current administration.
Yeah.
Because when we went out and protested against not just Obamacare, but several things that Obama did, you felt like you were protesting with, it's not like we were protesting with a bunch of objectivists or a bunch of radical freedom conservatives, but they were at least somewhat aligned with us. And when I look at the resist movement out there, I don't feel much alignment. It's kind of hard to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's changing though. I did actually look into what they were talking about with the hands-off protests in Detroit, and a lot of the signs are actually fairly reasonable. Some of them that would say, hands off my Social Security, and of course the other version of that in their list of hands off is hands off my wallet. Well, you really can't have both.
Yes.
And
yeah.
so but I just saw a lot of things that alluded to due process and alluded to the Constitution.
Right.
Things that you would find at, say, like a Tea Party rally. People actually had these things, and they were fairly reasonable. So that may actually happen. It may hopefully get people to, and especially people on the left, to not just take our system for granted and just not worry about it if there's a Democrat in office, and whatever they do is fine, and let's not actually look into checks and balances of government and how all that's going. I'm hoping that people will actually look at the amazing federalist constitutional republic government that we have. Look at the founders. Look at what Thomas Jefferson, happy birthday Thomas Jefferson today, what he wrote, and what James Madison and John Adams and all of these people actually said, and what their intentions were, and say, you know what, maybe we should go back to this. And maybe we are going a bit overboard with socialism and egalitarianism in all of its various nasty forms. Hopefully, but we'll see.
Or even they may have to acknowledge that, God, if I want freedom from Trump, I'm going to have to accept freedom in general.
Yes.
You hope you get some overlap there, and they can think twice about things.
Yeah. So here's one particular quote from the metaphysical versus the man-made. So she talks about the metaphysically given. If you try to rebel against it, you're going to. It's futile. It's not going to work, and you're basically negating what's real, negating existence. And then to accept the man-made as, you can't fight City Hall. You can't actually go up against anybody or try to engage people's reason or try to present new ideas or debate people or challenge people. And to say that is you can't do that is to basically say that you're going to negate your own consciousness, and you're going to negate the faculty of reason that people out there actually do have. It may take them a little while to understand what's going on, but they are not. I would say still, most people are not beyond reason. And I think that is a fair statement. And then she goes in, and I'll quote this directly. Serenity, she says, comes from the ability to say yes to existence. Courage comes from the ability to say no to the wrong choices made by others. And I thought that particular quote, unquote, from Ayn Rand was particularly perceptive, and I kept stopping anytime I found some really useful information that you can apply to your life, information that I can remind myself in my own life that if I don't like a given situation, or if I don't like a situation that I'm in, I can change it. She actually says, let's see here, one particular thing here, let's see, I just gotta find it. So she says, she's talking about, setting goals and trying to achieve it. And this was so strikingly deep and useful and helpful. I had to point this out. So she's talking about somebody who is accepting the primacy of consciousness, and we've talked about the primacy of existence versus primacy of consciousness before. Again, primacy of consciousness is basically saying wishing will make it so, and that other people have this power as well. Why don't I? And in this context, it says when a person makes a mistake, he does not ask himself, what do I need to learn? He asks instead, what's wrong with me? And there's a series of questions in here that are just really excellent.
Yeah, if I can read part of that, because as a musician, some would say, the question of talent comes up a lot. Some people, it just seems, pick up an instrument, or singing, or dance, or whatever it is, a talent naturally. They don't have to work as hard at it as other people do. And Ayn Rand talks about this in the idea that there's this unknowable something that people have and they wish that they had. And so let me read a section from the essay. She says, many men are crippled by the influence of this uncertainty about the world and themselves. When such a man considers a goal or desire he wants to achieve, the first question in his mind is, can I do it?
Or can I do it?
Can I do it?
Yeah.
Not what is required to do it, but, can I do it? And she goes on, his question means, do I have the innate ability? Again, we talk about talent. For example, I want to be a composer more than anything else on earth, but I have no idea how it's done. Well, do I have that mysterious gift, which will do it for me somehow? This is, again, Ayn Rand, he has never heard of a premise such as the primacy of consciousness, but that is the premise moving him as he embarks on a hopeless search through the dark labyrinth of his consciousness. Hopeless because without reference to existence, nothing can be learned about one's consciousness, unquote. And she goes on about this idea that people who make this kind of mistake, and many of us do in different areas, it's not that we're always doing this, but we try to figure out what's true by looking inward, by looking at what we already think and what we already know, and looking for something instead of looking out at the world and saying, well, what is the fact? What are the facts of reality? What would it take to make the thing happen? Not do I have what it takes, but, well, what would it take? What would I have to do? What will I have to do? What can I do? Yeah, it's a great essay, wholly on a personal level, and not just for understanding the state of the world.
Yeah, so what is required to do it? What is required in reality? And not just assuming that somebody else, especially if you're growing up and you're finding that a lot of people see that it's just easy to do math, or it's easy to pick up an instrument and play it, or whatever it may be, and then you start comparing yourself with other people, and then you just automatically assume that they had some sort of innate talent that you don't have, and therefore you're not even going to bother with it. So that is a mistake I think a lot of us have made. And that's certainly something that if you have children, you need to talk to them about, because that's an important discussion. They need to understand. I need to understand, if I want something, what is required to get it? What do I need to do in reality? What specific steps can I take? And I may be way behind. I may not have a talent in math, for instance. But if I want to do well and learn something and pass a class in whatever higher mathematics, I can do it because I know I'm going to have to take extra steps. I know my limitations. I don't have an innate talent for it or something, but I can do it. What is required for me to accomplish this goal? And customize it to my own nature, my own limitations, or my own values, whatever it may be. But you can do it. It takes persistence, but you can do it. And so there are so many wonderful things in this that are very motivational. It's very, very inspiring. Here's another quote here. Most men spend their lives in futile rebellion against things they cannot change, in passive resignation to things they can, and never attempting to learn the difference, in chronic guilt and self-doubt on both counts. So
the converse of all three elements of the Serenity prayer there.
Yes. And this reminds me of the kinds of ideas of in politics. A lot of people love to gripe about it and complain, especially when they're in echo chambers. And oftentimes they'll say, I'm just going to throw my hands up And, there's all sorts of man-made problems out there, including one named Donald Trump. Um, and and I have to say, I have to stop believing in or understanding that reason is efficacious. No, reason is efficacious. You can change people's minds. You can speak out. You can get the right ideas out there. You can advise people on what to do and give them inspiring ideas, such as the ones that are found in Ayn Rand's essay.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Donald Trump, because that gets us to the question of, well, wait a minute. What can I do about it, even if I know it's man-made? Do I judge it in order to get angry? Because it's not like I can change Donald Trump. And the answer is, the reason why you come to understand things, even if you can do nothing about them, is so that you can make sense of the world around you and protect yourself to the extent you can. You're right, you can't change Donald Trump, so understanding Donald Trump isn't going to help you change him. But understanding Donald Trump can take away the fear. Because even if you don't understand Donald Trump, he becomes the drooling beast. If you do understand him, it's still vicious what's going on. You still don't know everything that's going to happen, so you're limited in how much you can guard yourself against it. But it is explicable. You know what you're dealing with. And you can find kindred spirits who understand it too, especially if you're using the right media outlets and news sources. You should be listening to The Bulwark. You should be listening to Barry Weiss's podcast, Honestly. You should be listening to Sam Harris when he's having a good day. There are people out there who understand what's going on. Now, I think I'm going to, because we're already talking about the administration, the Apprentice White House edition, I think I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs real quick of my current understanding of Donald Trump. And I do this again just because by understanding it in this way, I know what I'm dealing with, and I'm a little less, it's a little less crazy making, if I can use that expression. So let me ask all of you out there, whether you are in the United States or overseas wondering what the hell, when you hear the phrase, and especially for those of you who do admire the administration, and I know you're out there too, when you hear the phrase, "Make America Great Again," now forget that it's an expression you've heard over and over, and it's on hats and MAGA and all that. When you hear that phrase, "Make America Great Again," what does the word great mean to you? Because some of you are thinking, well, more free, more liberty, or more factory jobs, or better economic prosperity, or great. What does that word mean to you? In the back of Donald Trump's mind, he has a diorama, a model, a fully formed vision.
Made of cardboard?
Made of cardboard, like a dollhouse. No, but he has a diorama in his head of Trump America, of America and the rest of the world as he wants it to be, as he believes it should be. This is his entirely personal vision of what the word great means in the phrase, "Make America Great Again." If you want to understand Donald Trump, you need to realize that. You may have a loose idea what great means to you. Donald Trump knows exactly what great America, Trump America, what that would mean.
Does he?
He does. Oh, he absolutely does. Oh, I'm telling you, that's why I say it's a diorama. He's got a model. He's got a vision. And in his model, it includes the word powerful. But it does not include the word free. Now, this is why it's MAGA, not MAFA. It's not about making America free. It's about making America great. He doesn't want America to be free. He wants America to be great. It's not about your freedom to pursue your vision, your values, your own hierarchy of values by your own judgment, what would be good for your life by your standards. It's not about greatness as it applies to you, your context, your life. It's about making that diorama, that model, that dollhouse, Trump America. It's about making that a reality. And, if that sounds kind of crazy, if that sounds hyperbolic, exaggerated, consider Trump's statements, the way he talks, his actual actions, the things he's actually done. Read his executive orders. What does all of it, all the crazy, what does it all add up to? And it all adds up to one thing. He is building that model, that diorama. The unifying principle in Donald Trump is, I will be the one to make America great by my own personal definition for the glory of Trump. People will acknowledge once and for all that I am a great man. They will admire me. They will appreciate me.
Yeah, that I definitely believe.
Now, some people out there, they share his vision. They have the same idea of what a great America would be. Some other people are just sick and tired and bitter and angry and hurt about leftism. They're so bitter and so angry that they embrace Trumpism, MAGA. And some of them do it, somewhat thoughtfully and, reluctantly. They see the mix there. Other people just do it blindly and enthusiastically. But there's that mix. There's all different people who are accepting this for different reasons. And fortunately, there are many, many, many people who don't. And more of those thoughtful people are rethinking their support for Trump. And you can find essays and articles and podcasts. If you're looking for them, you can find the interviews, all sorts of reasonable voices who resist, not out of leftism, but just out of sanity. Not blindly, but rationally. Here's a game for you. Identify the quote. Is this Dr. Horrible from the comedy musical, or is this Dr. Robert Stadler from Atlas Shrugged? The world, or is it Donald Trump? The world is a mess and I just need to rule it. Or how about to seize control? I'll show them. To seize control, to rule. There is no other way to live on Earth. I mean, they could both be Donald Trump. Obviously, the first is the comedy. The second is Atlas Shrugged. They could both be Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Easily. But yeah, when you hear "Make America Great," ask yourself why. Why great? Why not free? That's not what they want. It's not what Trump wants. It's not what his people want. They don't want freedom. They want greatness, their own personal vision of what greatness is. Now, why do I say all that? I don't get into this stuff on 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. This is the stuff I talk about on other shows. And the answer is, because now that I've got a handle on it, it's still bad, it's still terrible, it's still a disaster, and there's all these things I need to do to compensate for what's happening in the economy and what's happening politically. But I understand it. But I can find serenity because now I know what's going on. Jim Ashley wrote on, he's written on all these topics I've mentioned before. He is a writer. Look at his social media on Facebook. And he's got a short one here. It says, "The key to serenity." And he writes, serenity is not passivity. Serenity doesn't just mean standing still and doing nothing. Serenity does not mean lifelessness. It's not death. Serenity is not helpless resignation. And then he says, one psychologist whose columns I read likes the sentiment expressed when people say, "It is what it is." That is, when it's meant the way it should be meant. he holds that acceptance of what is the key to serenity. And then Jim goes on. I like the statement, it is what it is too, but I like a shorter version of it. What is. And I like a shorter version of that too, the law of identity in philosophy, which states that A is A. And Jim goes on. There's a link to that in the show notes, a couple of his essays in the show notes. Well, Donald Trump, sadly, is Donald Trump, but he's a lot less horrifying. Maybe not a lot. He's somewhat less horrifying when you fully understand how this crazy-making situation came about. It can frustrate me, but it can't make me crazy anymore because I get it now. I totally get it. And I get why some people, a lot of people, millions of people are on board with it. And understanding it the way I do, I also see that the progression will be bad, but not as bad as some of us think it's going to be. I won't say this too shall pass, even though it will, because it's going to do a lot of damage in the meantime. So I don't want to give short shrift to it. But I love the serenity prayer. I certainly need the courage to change what I can, but also the serenity to accept what I can't. But I also love that Ayn Rand takes it to that next level of, well, once somebody does do a thing and you have made a judgment, it's now a fact and you have to deal with that too. And you can, is the point. You absolutely can. So I've got some links in the show notes to achieving serenity from other people. For example, Google AI says to cultivate serenity, focus on practices like meditation, mindfulness, and mindfulness meditation. See, this is what you get from AI. Somehow that made sense. Meditation, mindfulness, and mindfulness meditation, which can reduce stress and promote a sense of calm. Additionally, consider cultivating gratitude, limiting exposure to negativity, and prioritizing self-care. AI, nonsense. And then I read that a second time. I'm like, oh, crap, they got it. They actually got it 100% right. Well, maybe not 100%, because that meditation, mindfulness, and mindfulness meditation, I don't know, maybe those are 3 different things. But cultivating gratitude?
Yeah.
I have to remind myself to cultivate gratitude because I fall into the same trap everybody else does of taking every frickin' thing for granted. I mean, I love my stuff. I love my people. We had Great Lakes Objectivists last night. We had a room full of people, great people, smart people, rational people who think philosophically the same way I do. What more could you want in your life? But also pianos and guitars and my car and electronics and my own knowledge, my own quote-unquote talents. And I have so many things to be grateful for, and I forget to be grateful all the time. So thank you, Google AI, for reminding me. Consider cultivating gratitude. Oh, yeah. Yeah, stop taking stuff, and especially people, for granted.
Well, one thing, real quick thing about gratitude. I know some people don't like the idea of it because they feel that it's like an obligation or an altruistic obligation, especially when somebody says, oh, you should feel grateful.
Good point. Why aren't you grateful?
It has nothing to do with that. Actually, what it is, and we talked about this because one of our friends, good friends, we actually interviewed on the show, Sean Albert. He and some other of his friends are putting together what's called the Sam Adams Society, and you'd have to check it out. Google Sam Adams Society and you'll find his webpage. But he was talking about asserting the positive instead of saying, this is what we're not, and here's a whole laundry list.
Yes.
He was talking about, well, how can I write this in a way that asserts the positive, that presents the strongest standards? So when I think of being grateful, I think present the strongest standards. Say, you know what, I'm grateful for this, and the standard of this particular thing that I'm grateful for or admiring of or thankful for or joyful that it exists, whatever it may be, I am asserting a standard and or an inspiration or whatever, or whatever it may be in the particular context. But that when I think I'm grateful, I'm saying I'm grateful for this because it's good. And and I can tell you why it's good. I can tell you why it's good for me. So that's how I think of that. And it's really it kind of grounds you to your values. It certainly puts a pep in my step, and it makes me a little bit happier. So that's what I think of when I think of that word.
We've done whole episodes on gratitude, and I won't get too much into it, but if you love anything, how can you not appreciate it? Gratitude doesn't mean saying, oh, I don't deserve it. One of the greatest things about the values in your life is you do deserve them. And that doesn't mean that's not the opposite of gratitude. That's coexistent with gratitude. I got to say, the chat, I'm taking a look at the chat here, and incidentally, Audrey says, Miga, make individuals great again. I like that. I wouldn't put it that way because somebody's going to come along and impose their idea of greatness on you, the individual, but I do like the idea. And
you can run away.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah, I'm here to help you be great, a great individual. But I love the idea, and I think you mean the same thing we do. Pablo says MAFA. See, the problem is MAFA it needs a hard consonant sound. Make Americans free again.
Well, not unless he's talking about mafia.
Mafia, yeah, it sounds too much like mafia, and we've already got that in the White House. So, yeah, but yes, absolutely, MAFA, make America free. It just doesn't occur to them that we need to improve things. Let's let people act in accordance with their own best judgment. Let's let people free. What do you mean? If you leave people free, they're not going to make anything great? What are you talking about? That's exactly when people make things great. So, yes, absolutely.
Well, it relates back to my birthday message. Pablo asks, where do I direct this gratefulness? And that's something that you're going to have to figure out, Pablo. I can give you suggestions, but
I can give you a list.
But I
God.
I can go back to my birthday message from last weekend when I was talking about my birthday and how the thing, I should say it this way, the gift that I give to myself every birthday is a perspective and orientation to seek out all of the goodness and all of the beauty around me as if it was presented or prepared for me on this day of my birth to celebrate myself. That's how I...
That's true.
And that is a perspective or an approach that you can use any day of the year. It doesn't have to be your birthday.
And you may think, well, metaphysical gratitude is a contradiction. How can you hold metaphysical gratitude? Because the earth just is, so there's nobody to thank. The person to thank is yourself. Well, I didn't make it all happen. Well, but you perceive it. Well, perception's automatic. No, the point is precisely that your appreciation of it, your discernment, your ability to take it in and have it experience as a value is precisely an achievement. But I'll go a step further than that because I'm in the studio today, as I always am, Sundays at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. And in the studio, this show is performed using several computers. They're all laptops. And I didn't create them. I didn't design them. I didn't design the microchips. I didn't build the motherboards. I didn't come up with the LCD tech. A lot of these technologies didn't exist 20, 30 years ago that are in these machines. And you think, well, you don't have gratitude for that. You paid for it. Yes, I did pay. I worked my ass off to pay for it. And yet, well 200 years ago, or today on a deserted island, I work my ass off and nothing's going to happen. No. What I am surrounded by, and I pick the computers, but it could be the lights, it could be the video camera, it could be from where I'm sitting, I can see a piano and a guitar. From where I'm sitting, I can see a Victrola. No, that's not an old word for a record player. It's literally a Victrola branded unit. I can see so many things. The building itself, which over the course of my lifetime, I could not have invented, created, produced. Well, maybe the guitar, maybe some of the simpler things. Point is, well, my way of putting it, if I can put it metaphorically or hyperbolically, and this is true for you too, we are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourselves. And again, by miracle, I just mean things which me, alone on a deserted island, or on a desert island, could never produce. I just couldn't make it happen. Not just because I wouldn't have the tools and the physical materials, but the inventions, the technology and the experience and the blood, sweat, and tears and the super high-powered intellect. I am surrounded in any given moment by 1,000 things to be grateful for. And the fact that I worked hard and paid for it all is just one more thing to be grateful for. There's people I get to trade with. I get to put my best out there and they give me back their best. So yes, it's a good question. It's a very good question. Fortunately, there's a very good answer too.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, especially, being able to invite a friend to create a Halloween birthday cake with you in April. I mean, what's better than that?
And you get to do that, or something else, whatever suits your style. I guess we haven't done gratitude really since Thanksgiving. $20 bill or £20 note. No, forget the pound note. Credit card. Put a credit card in your pocket. Debit card, credit card, whatever. Walk into a department store. If I go into, here in America, I would go into Target. If I go into a Target store with my Apple card in my pocket, there is nothing in that store. There's probably 10,000 things in that store you can buy. There is nothing in that store that I could not buy on the spot and walk out with, or have delivered if it was furniture. I guess I might not be able to walk out. There's nothing. And I feel that every time I walk into a department store. And there may be fancier stores. I could go into Neiman Marcus, or where did we go at the Somerset collection? The Tiffany store. They have a few items which I couldn't just put on my credit card.
Yeah.
But if I was determined to own them, I could make that happen. The point is, I am surrounded by this stuff. It's all offered to me. And I've got to pay for it. But that's a good thing. It's a trade. The gratitude that I feel is not that somebody's giving me something, but that they're trading with me. That they are doing for me what I am doing for them. Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful thing. I know people who think a trade is zero sum.
Or win-lose.
But even if they think it's just an even trade and therefore no gratitude's required because everybody got what they deserved and only what they deserved, that should never be your attitude in a trade.
Thanks, John Rawls.
Yeah, there's a version of that I always mention in the workplace because I've been a manager and I've been an employee. And I've worked with managers, co-managers, people, my peers, who have said, I never praise employees unless they do something extraordinary, something above and beyond. Because otherwise they're just doing their job and that's what they're getting paid for.
Hate
and
that.
To me, that is the most vile. That's an immoral statement.
Yes.
If you are giving somebody a job to do that is worth no more than the paycheck that they received, you should be ashamed of yourself. No, anybody who's willing to go in and do a job for you and presumably, do a good job and a decent job and one that they should feel good about and one their customers enjoy or their clients enjoy, you should be able to say to them, you don't have to go to them every day and, throw a party for them, but, thank you. Thank you for doing your job. That was good. That was a good day at work. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. And they should be able to say the same thing to you. Life is not just, I did what I had to do and I got through the day. If it is, open your eyes a little bit wider and realize we are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourselves. Again, not literal miracles, no religion, none of that. I say it that way because it's precisely, you got to open your eyes. As Ferris Bueller says, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. We are surrounded by reasons to have gratitude.
Yes.
Now, I got a little distracted because that came up, but it was just one of several things in the list of ways to develop serenity. I'm just going to read the other 6 real quick. No, the other 5, because that was one of the 6. Develop love for yourself. Boy, we could do a whole show on that, right? Practice self-care. And Jordan Peterson was smart enough to say, treat yourself the way you would treat somebody who you're responsible for. Be as good to yourself as you are to people who depend on you. So yes, practice self-care. Visualize a peaceful place. Well, that's the meditation thing. A lot of you think that's hooey, but those of you who know better, visualize a peaceful place. It could be a place you've already been. It could be a place you plan to go to. It could be a place you'll never go to. And it's just whimsical. Not whim worshipping, whimsical. Access nature. Well, Amy, you know all about this. Go out in the woods. Get lost. I mean, not really deeply lost. We have a place we walk in the woods around here, and half the time when we go there, we get lost. Because the trails aren't marked. I mean, there's numbers if you have a map, but we don't have a map. And we get lost. And it's a beautiful thing. It's fun. It's enjoyable. And it's a pattern interrupt. It gets you thinking differently than you may have been thinking an hour before. Be grateful, and then foster deeper connections. I had to intentionally end with foster deeper connections because you deserve that. You deserve to reach out to people and communicate with them. And everybody who's in the chat right now, you do that. And I love that you do that. And that's a very, very cool thing. And, Andrea says she's watching from St. Pete Airport. Excellent. That's man, it's funny. Somebody shared a picture of airport from probably the 1970s. We were talking about 1976. And they've got this row of seats that look almost like, grade school desks. But they've got little televisions, black and white TVs on all the desks. And you could go to the airport way back then and put a few quarters in a slot, and this television would come on. You could watch TV while you're waiting for your flight. Nowadays, you just take that supercomputer out of your pocket and watch television on your phone. Serenity.
Serenity now.
Should you be serene in a world in which the United States has been taken over by a megalomaniacal narcissist? Yes and no. Should you be serene? Yes. But no, not while you're dealing with the Apprentice White House edition. So, Keith Weiner, are we living in good times? Yes and no. So understand the no, and now that I've read you my essay and that you fully understand the no, and then set it aside. And revisit it when you've got to do something about it, when you've got to rejigger your finances or do your income taxes or plan your career future or anything else that might be affected by Orange Man Bad. And then let it go. And go back to the serene part, the good part, the gracious part, the part with gratitude, the part with kindred spirits, the part with friends of yours, the part where on 6 o'clock Eastern Time you can hang out with Robert and Amy Nasir. Serenity is there anytime you want it. If you can't set all that stuff aside and get to a place of serenity, well, we gave you some tips tonight, but also re-listen to last week's episode. The quick version of that was, if you've got a song stuck in your head you don't want stuck in your head, hit the skip button and put in a different song. You can't think of 2 songs at the same time. And you can do that here too, except what you're doing is you're hitting the skip button on disvalues and threats and getting back to values.
Yes.
You deserve that. I know you deserve that. You deserve to have that in your life.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing before we wrap up, because we're over now, is that every time that you engage with reality and ask yourself, what would it take to, what do I need to engage with to get to the goal that I want? What actions do I need to take in reality to do what I want to do, to pursue my values, to achieve all the things, to maintain my values? And, keep that primacy of existence, a perspective in your mind whenever you're doing anything, whenever you're going for something, whenever you're working towards something. And also keep it in mind that if you are fighting and you're putting ideas out there, realize that you can't manipulate people into like say like what Donald Trump would believe of himself, to be able to manipulate people and to make America great again in his own image or whatever it may be. He is working from the primacy of consciousness perspective, that he can wish it and make it so. That is setting him up. He's actually already suffered under this pretense all of his life. He's probably been very resentful for it, and he's probably lashing out about it right now in the White House. It's really unfortunate. But you have to realize that, you're not going to be able to change the mind of Donald Trump. You might not be able to change the mind of some people, but you have to identify correctly what people have, what people are capable of. And they are capable of reason. They are capable of processing new ideas. And you are capable of putting ideas out there that will influence people around you. That is a fact of reality. And that's a fact that people who engage in the primacy of consciousness approach can't get around. They won't be able to wish that out of existence. So make sure that you check your premises. Make sure you check what your facts are. Make sure that you're objective about yourself, your own nature, and act as rationally and find as much happiness as you possibly can.
Yeah, I would like to think the Trump story will end the way the film Hook ends. Although at the end of Hook, Captain Hook, I would like it to end that way. He gets a moment of grace from Peter's daughter Maggie when she says, because they want to banish him and end him and give Hook the punishment he deserves, and she says, just leave him there. He's just a sad old man. And you think there's going to be a forgiveness there that isn't deserved, but then the crocodile comes down and kills him, and so that one ends the way it should. We were talking about gratitude here, and technology was part of it, and somebody mentioned my iPad. I didn't realize it was on camera back here.
Oh.
But you could use that. I can use the iPad to show you. Here's what you do. You go to this page, robertnasir.com, and then you scroll to the very bottom of this page on this amazing iPad, this technology that is just still blows my mind. Unbelievable to me 14 years after I got my first one. And at the very bottom of the page, you see a link there to Patreon. Please support us on Patreon or make a one-time contribution by PayPal. Folks, thank you for supporting the show. Well, thank you to one of you for supporting Great Lakes Objectivists, too. Thank you for that. If you want to support what we do here at 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, including somewhat random conversations like we had today, but were fun, patreon.com/Robert Nasir. And paypal.com/Robert Nasir if you don't want to pay every month. No, I just want to send them a few dollars once. Go to paypal.com/Robert Nasir. Either way, thank you. Thank you to those of you who do support the show, who you do make a contribution every month. And they range, I think, right now from $2 to $50. They're all good. It's all good. You are all wonderful. Okay, that's not your thing. You think, I don't have any money for that. But you could like the show on YouTube. You could share the show on YouTube. You could subscribe on YouTube. Help us get our subscriber count up to 1,000 when we can start doing super chats like the big guy we all know. That would be cool too. And either way, our gratitude, trust me, we do not take you for granted. Our gratitude goes to you for being with us, for hanging with us, for those of you who watch live, for being in the chat. And we'll do it all again next week. But until then, read that essay by Ayn Rand, The Metaphysical versus the Man-Made. Originally printed in the Ayn Rand letter and reprinted in Philosophy Who Needs It, but it's 2025. You don't care about that. What you want to do is go to the Ayn Rand Institute website where you can read it. Just Google it. You'll find it. Link is also in the show notes. And until next week, Can't believe we ran as late as we did today. Such a simple topic. Until next week, we wish you all of the success that you so richly deserve. But we also wish you the serenity that comes from knowing your values, what you think of what's going on out there, and more than anything else, what you want. We hope you get a big heaping helping of everything that you want, and that's why we are also sending you over the internet or through the waves or in whatever manner you are prepared to receive it. I hope you've got that big baseball glove up in the air and you're ready.